What's up, everybody? This is episode 53 of the Front Lounge podcast. Today, I have got proof that I was right about Tom Hanks being close to the worst actor in the world. He's released a new movie on Netflix. I'm going to play the preview from that to just see what a pile of shit it is. We're talking about the fact that Apple is releasing VR goggles, a whole new platform. Dylan has some points on that, thinking it's time to check out. And then just shooting the shit. And Jesse, maybe you said we should play a demo or two. If you've got something ready, drop it in the Dropbox and I could pull it up.
Well, we've also been doing these acoustic things, and you could preview that for our podcast streamers, Twitchers.
Yeah,
they'll get an early look at that versus when we put it out on Instagram and YouTube and all that.
Also, I don't know if you guys noticed, Danny and Dylan are sitting in pews.
Pew, 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 pew.
So I bought these on Facebook Marketplace, and I had them in my house, and they kind of are cool as a podcast thing. They're actual little mini pews from a church. Pew, pew, pew.
Yeah, I'm just going to talk so I can get on this. Yeah, it's a little awkward to first sit in, but it actually feels nice. Feels like you're in like a
your arms up.
Spaceship. Like,
I guess with the mic.
If there's something that reminds me of this, what are the bad guys drive in Star Wars? Those like X or like the
Honda
H.
Civics.
Yeah, the H ships. The bad whatever the dark.
Oh yeah.
Johnny, you need to get an altar so that you can conduct the sermon.
We should just do these in an actual confessional booth.
Say my name, Francis. What's the topic for today?
TIE Fighter.
Well,
that's what he's saying. That's what the Star Wars thing is.
Oh,
yeah, we discussed people that are just joining. The topic for today begins with this. Why don't we just get right into it? I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to click. This is a new movie.
Find everything.
And Netflix is having some issues. Hold on. There we go. No, that's not what I want.
Should we just watch Netflix and not do a podcast?
Because I can't hear a thing you're saying.
there it is.
Yeah,
number 2.
But I wanted to. I want to see
you're looking for today.
Yes.
Good. Let's see here. Your total is $347.
You charged me for 6 feet of rope.
Oh yes, it's 99 cents a yard.
I didn't get 2 yards. I got 5 feet.
Yeah, we don't charge by the foot. We charge by the yard.
99 cents a yard is 33 cents a foot times 5. That's 165. You charged me $1.98.
You're good at math. No, I know, but I can't put it into the computer the way that you just said.
What the hell kind of computer can't do simple math? Could I speak to your manager?
Is that lunch?
Lunch. All anyone cares about these days is lunch. Is there anyone else in charge?
You want the assistant manager?
Yes, I'd like the assistant manager.
Okay. Hey, Taylor?
Anyway, you get the idea. No, I mean, the only thing worse than Tom Hanks is Netflix writers. I said this, I forget who I was talking to, but I support the writers, or support the writers' strike for what they're asking for, which is typical, like fair pay, all the kind of stuff, just fighting back against the studios. But also, write something good on Netflix.
Yeah, I support the good writers.
Yes.
He's quirky.
Yeah, that's a trope, right? Like the trope of the angry old man.
No, that was a rope.
Upset at the grocery store.
Tom Hanks is a trope.
Yeah,
I think is the problem. I never, until you said it, it's apparently pretty good. I'm gonna watch it. The problem is once you get an idea in your head, it's very hard to get it out. And Joey infected us with the idea that Tom Hanks sucks because he was high one day watching what is it called? Forrest Gump. And he said, this is the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. And now when I go see it, I see it in exactly the same light. And I have a very hard time watching anything Tom Hanks has done. Although Philadelphia was great.
I can't watch anything he's done.
Yeah,
now,
that's the problem.
It's
yeah.
completely spoiled. And I know there are some good ones that he's done. It's just, the idea has infected my brain.
Yeah.
It's hard, when you become almost a meme, because he's so famous and he's done so many things and been around for so long that it's actually impossible to see him as not Tom Hanks. So he always looks like he's acting, to me at least. And, I don't even know how you would get around that. Like, let's say, you're the most amazing actor ever, but people only ever see you. You gotta do makeup or something, or they're just going to see you as the guy acting.
I don't think it's the acting necessarily. It's like what he chooses to act in. It's always so reputationally preservative, Philip Seymour Hoffman and what's his name? What's the guy's name? The Joker guy.
Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin Phoenix. They
And Daniel
choose.
Day-Lewis.
They choose movies, and it feels like this could not go well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like Daniel Day-Lewis, what's the movie, one of his most recent movies about the seamstress or the
Phantom Thread.
Phantom Thread. Like, people that choose roles where they are so good at them and they're so unlikable, so aspects of them are so unlikable that it could potentially damage a next role that they do. Mm-hmm. That's good acting.
Yeah. No,
and Tom Hanks, same thing. They don't ever choose like a role like that.
Tom Cruise is way better. No, seriously, he's way, way better.
Than Tom Hanks?
Yeah.
I mean, we've said,
Yeah.
I don't mind repeating this topic on this podcast a lot because I'm passionate about very few things, but this is one of them. If you want to get me out and voting in 2024, put Tom Hanks on the ticket, someone's ticket, so I can vote against him. What else is in news today? I saw a headline. I don't even have to pull it up. Apple's working on VR goggles, like a whole new platform. Mm-hmm. And Dylan,
You've got it there. Can we see the headline, or I want to see the picture of it? Apple's next product is so good. What's the headline? Apple's next product is so good, expert claims, and we could get a glimpse at it within weeks. Oh, I was expecting some sentence.
No, this is just a sentence that Apple wrote.
Yeah. I was just saying there's got to be a point for the individual where you just start checking out of these new developments. And like, obviously 20 years ago, you would have said about the cell phone, if it was attached to your hip in your pocket and you were on it all day looking at Instagram, you'd be like, I'm never going to do that. But that's all we do. So now it's the VR things, but there has to be some point where obviously the masses are going to all just jump in on this, but at what point do you individually just say, you know what, fuck, I'm not going to wear a VR goggles all my
The problem
days.
is look up the Apple logo. So just type in, Apple logo. And everyone knows it. You don't need to look it up, I guess. But
The tree of knowledge, or?
Yeah, it's the forbidden fruit. So, this is... The problem was, it's not VR or phones or fire or whatever. It's the forbidden fruit that was eaten of. And we are stuck now in a perpetual pursuit of further and further gradation of improvement and technology and understanding more and more little facts and having more impressions coming in. It's never ending.
Yeah, I'm saying it's unstoppable. But for an individual, for you, or not even an individual, for me, basically, I can't imagine, and I'll wait a few years to be proven wrong. I cannot imagine walking around with VR goggles now for any portion of the day.
Is it VR though? So this is one where you are completely immersed in it. It's not something like that.
No, I think it's AR as well.
Yeah, I think they're talking about AR. You walk around, you see map directions, you see recommendations for restaurants and all that. It's totally going to be.
Everyone's going to be doing it. Yeah, for sure. I mean,
it's not even a question whether society is going to jump on it, and some people have made some good points that if you don't and you want to live basically a normal modern life, a Western modern life, you're going to have to jump into it because it's going to give you so much advantage in the workplace or in school or in whatever you're doing. It's going to have so much advantage to have this at your fingertips or be looking through this all day.
It's trying to get a programming job and you show up with your pencil and notebook. I'm ready to work, guys.
And then every time I hear that, and then I'm like, well, what the fuck is the point of life? What's the point of this pursuit if you have to walk around just being fed information, most of it useless and meaningless, all day long with a screen on your eyes? My eyes have already started to deteriorate because of phone usage and computer usage. My astigmatism is getting worse and worse, which is so clearly related to screens. Now you got to have that on your face the whole time.
What is the
Here's
Joe, go ahead.
Go ahead. Here's my hot take on it. We are already sort of maybe it's just like a 7-layer bean dip. We're already several layers removed from reality. Through our subconscious and the way our waking consciousness, how detached from actual reality they are. That what's one more layer? I think that's what's happening. We're going to just go one more layer lower. And if you actually want to glimpse reality, you've got just one more step to climb up. So that's, I think, where we're headed, basically. Increased layers of removal from actual reality.
I think that we use those phrases, and it's if you think about them too long, you can't wrap your head around them. There is no...
No, they're wrapped around you.
Yeah, but there is no...
Spoon. There is no spoon.
Yeah, exactly. There is no spoon. They're like reality. The same mind that is being upset about this interference in reality is trying to conceive what reality would look like.
I think if you're talking about this, Dylan's point of whether this is just another thing that you have to, what am I trying to say? You have a cutoff point in your own life. It's basically got to do with when you stop being impressed with novelty of things in life, because you just have to accept the idea that there's endless novelty that's going to be coming your way. If every new shiny thing takes all or too much of your attention, that's where the problem is. Mm-hmm. You just have to accept, I'm going to be bombarded for the rest of my life with new things. Right. That's the way it's going.
It's like how many yogurt variations can they make where they put the fruit separate or they put it at the bottom and they're always trying to improve yogurt.
Well, I think that's kind of a connected thing is on the specifically about yogurt, because when you go walk in a grocery store and see endless rows of yogurt, they keep trying to improve something because they abandoned when they had made yogurt to the best it could have been, which was probably 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Yogurt peaked.
Right.
You cannot improve yogurt. No matter how much you try, it is actually peaked. Now, in the technological world, I think there's probably lots of areas where things can improve. Like movies, I think, took 40, 50 years to actually get to the point where they could use the tools correctly. Mm-hmm. I think augmented reality, virtual reality is going to take a decade or more till it's just becomes a thing that's not trying to figure itself out. But
maybe once they finally get Jamie Lee Curtis to take a poop, they'll stop trying to improve it.
Well, it's obviously it's going to have some upsides into it because you can see how it would start to affect medicine and surgery and all that. It's going to be like it's so useful in surgery and in that it's probably going to save lives. So I'm not saying we should be out there protesting it or anything. I'm just saying for oneself, there's got to be a stopping point. Like it's AR, then clearly it's a chip in the brain. It's Neuralink. Then it's like sitting on the couch with the toilet in the couch, and it's watching Ow, My Balls.
Humans will never stop it themselves, I don't think. The only thing that will stop it is Mother Nature, where you're wearing your goggles and you accidentally walk into the ocean. That's the only thing that will stop
No, but I'm not talking about humans. Like we know humans are going to do it. I'm saying for oneself, there's got to be a checkout point.
I mean, I don't know that the differentiation between different tools and different technological things that essentially put you into a state of hypnosis, I don't know that one is necessarily worse than the other. Clearly, the algorithm is learning to kind of put you to sleep. But, there is a counter reaction to that. I think the interesting parts of it are kind of turning into Gattaca, I've heard some people talk about what's coming in the future, and it's going to be a linking of cryptocurrency and AR, VR. So your digital keys to life, your digital identity, and your access to the world is going to be linked with this. It's where you have, your passports or your NFTs or whatever contract you have in your wallet, in your goggles, and you walk down the street, and there's a key that unlocks a door that you get into this store. You get the discount at Walmart because you're wearing the goggles, and only you can see it because it's on part of your AR. It's not painted on the wall. It's not an actual physical sign.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's all buildings are going to start to look blank, and the advertisements will all be in your goggles.
That's what I'm saying is that it's going to become where you can't not use it. Like if you wanted to live life without a smartphone right now, you just couldn't. unless you literally abandoned modern life. You couldn't live without a smartphone, which means then you have to have Face ID and you have to have all these other things. So I'm not even opposed to that, because most of it, if you used correctly, is great. But the minute it becomes required for basically it's like bare essentials, like if you need to go do stuff out in the modern world, and now you're required to have the Neuralink in your mind because that's how it's like unlocking these doors into Walmart or whatever, then we're fucked. Like, it's one thing to be able to put on, like, I can see myself at night putting on AR or VR goggles or whatever to browse the net or something like that, to where it's access into something that's necessary. But the moment it becomes part of essential life, then it's
just to be
crazy.
An advocate for the devil here. The word Maya, which is whatever that fucking, wherever it comes from, who cares? It's describes, the gridding or whatever of reality, or like the fact that this is all illusory, all of it, every single thing. And there's another guy who was talking about, some guru who was saying, like, you're too into flowers. It's enough with the flowers already. They're like, you're delusional about what's beautiful in the world because you're too into flowers. This describing this person's personality of kind of automatic attraction to aesthetic beauty and the inability to penetrate this Maya,
right?
Which is now added to by another technological layer, but it's not fundamentally different from anything. And maybe
that's kind of where I was getting at with the layers of non-reality. Is looking at a screen that has an incredible movie on it, that tells an epic mythical tale, and you suspend your disbelief and you enter that world and you have impressions that shape your reality and shape your entire being. Is that worse than seeing it, in the screen of life, basically without the LED or the LCD monitor? Like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that is a counter argument. Whatever your impressions are, how they get into your consciousness, is it actually different if it comes through some, technological medium or through the technology of nature?
One thing I think, on back to the idea of looking at flowers and this obsession we have with perceiving beauty via our eyes, which is the same as, like, it's not actually different than watching a movie, watching a VR game. Nature made it. Nature made us. We made movies. It's all kind of the same thing. One thing I think that helps me not be that obsessed with looking flowers is thinking if an alien came here and just saw a bunch of people that decorated their houses with plants' genitalia. And it's like something about that. It's a joke, obviously, but it's like a funny thing to think about.
Well,
we're obsessed with looking at other beings' genitalia because we find it beautiful. It's very, very weird if you just step out of the fact that you actually do like flowers.
Maybe that's what Georgia O'Keeffe was getting at, because she does all those like vagina flower, all those like New Mexico vagina flower paintings. It is all basically kind of, it's aesthetics in general have to be an illusion because they are a functional preference. They are a preference which dictates procreation, and if you're trying to get in touch with reality, it's not within the same realm as procreation.
It's some kind of trance-like state that we appear. You can only by analogy guess at what it might be like, is because when you play a video game, for instance, and you get obsessed in the world of the video game with looking around that universe or chasing some task, and then you pop out of it, you switch the game off, you realize how deeply involved and identified and connected you were with those goals, those impressions that were coming at you. Now, by analogy, you just have to assume that what we're perceiving now and are obsessed with now is probably not it either. That there is a state in which you could wake up from that and go, oh, holy shit, I was obsessed with flowers or VR goggles or whatever.
I think this sounds like it's just gotten a little broad. I mean, what I'm talking about is you can't compare browsing Twitter to like walking in the forest or something like that, because I think the mechanical
you could if a bunch of assholes were throwing shit at you.
There's the potential when you are, and it's not always there. Like I agree that you could get obsessed and just kind of like get into a zombie sleep mode of being attracted to or impressed by natural aesthetics. But if you're browsing Twitter, you're getting pulled into a deep sleep of all these impressions, whereas everyone's had the experience of stepping into nature and being woken up rather than being pulled into a deep sleep.
So I think a big part of that is the complexity and the organicness of the impressions that are coming at you. When you look at a badly designed movie or a Tom Hanks movie, you're getting just this very partial picture, this partial picture of something that's meant to impress upon you.
Yeah.
When you look at nature, you're looking at the culmination of all of existence into what you're looking at. But nevertheless, in a kind of simulation-y theory sort of thing, like maybe this has all just been made. Like it's not real in any other sense.
I'm not saying you can't get a similar effect if you see a really good movie, which is using technology and on a screen and all that stuff. If you can feel that, if you can feel that creative energy coming through that might have a similar effect. There have been movies or films that spark something deep in you while you're watching it, and you kind of come to for a moment. It's obviously the majority of this technology and ARs and stuff is just going to be used for browsing Twitter and porn, probably. Like it's going to be
guaranteed,
it's just porn. Yeah.
I will play devil's advocate again. That the quality.
There's enough fucking lawyers in here. You're both playing.
The quality of your interaction with whatever impressions you receive is what you bring to it. Now, and I think you should consider the possibility that you are biased towards a natural existence. And there are some people who are sort of their intellectual life, whether it's through Twitter or books or whatever sort of mechanism of communication and thinking, that's how they operate at their best. And that's what, their leaning is perhaps. And as long as their physical body is somewhat functioning in the world, and they're taking care of their health and actually moving, then I don't know who's to say what's quantifiably more important,
Well, what if we tried to say that what is more important, and I think this is actually what Dylan was probably trying to get at, is for you as an individual, what is narcoleptic and what is awakening?
Well,
is that a way you could for yourself judge the?
It's all potentially both, depending on.
No, that's what I'm saying. You would have to, at any given moment, judge the effect that something is having on you.
Right.
Because if you're going into nature to fall asleep, like some people do, to get away and just go sit in the grass and daydream or drift off, then that's all equally.
But these are all basically judgments, including what I'm saying right now. But what I mean is that the state that is judging is not the state that allows you to see something new.
But
I'm laughing because Dylan's bare foot is in your frame while you're speaking about this stuff, and he's going on about nature and walking the forest.
No, I guess what I mean is that
everyone knows the sensation of being snapped out of a daze on Twitter, right? You know the sensation and the difference between being in a daze or being a zombie on Twitter or Instagram, and then coming to and being like, "Holy shit, I'm wasting my time."
You're separating artificially the daze and the snapping out of it. You're not realizing that they're codependent.
No, they're not codependent. They're interrelated.
Right.
You have to have that moment of being in that daze to recognize it. That you can't not have it.
So
to
nothing is
recognize
bad or good.
Only towards whatever. If you have a desire to not be in that daze, then the less time you spend in that, and whatever brings you out of that daze is good.
Sure, but fundamentally, whatever you're interacting with is just neutral.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm not saying the universe has some moral judgment on it, or that the Earth or world or whatever, like some larger scale thing has some judgment on it. I'm saying for yourself.
Yeah. If we were to get rid of things that are overly stimulating and hypnotizing, I would not be making a tiramisu again soon. That's the part that the reason I'm resistant to it is because I like being hypnoptized.
Right.
I like going into just pleasure.
But that's what it all. That's
pleasure.
That's what everyone is doing, is some form or another of hedonism. Some people are just better at it than others, in terms of just going into the senses. I think what you get at and what you see playing out in humanity particularly is an endless chasing of more things for the senses, which is an unlimited, there's no end to that. So that's where you have to have some internal question of what more can I give my senses expecting to find an answer? So I think people have to go a little bit down those paths of hedonism in all its aspects and technological consumption, and to be able to draw a line for yourself and say, okay, it's not actually interesting to me anymore.
I think that the same mind that criticizes sensationalism and the obsession with the senses is a sense-based mind. In other words, you're not actually doing anything by criticizing this fundamental baseline operating system that you're. It's the same mind that is
not criticizing
participating.
I'm not criticizing it like you need to withdraw from all the senses. It's more that the idea is that
I'm saying that idea that, or like that, you know, even the idea that the kind of pendulum and contrast of life, and if you have a kind of resentment towards that fact, then you're in your senses already.
Right. I'm not saying as a resistance. I'm saying a resistance to being fully identified with your senses. That's what we're talking about. We're saying your life is going to exist where you live centrally through all of your senses. But it's not only that.
Yeah.
That's not a criticism of it. It's like, I think that's where a lot of people, like, particularly like Instagram yoga people, is like they just imagine that what life should be is just like nothingness or something, you know, like we should withdraw from all existence and then that would be existence, which is that's kind of a silly, simplistic way to look at it. It's just more so that you cannot believe that all of life is simply senses.
I think we've covered this before, but I'll bring it up again. There's a term, anarcho-primitive, and that's basically Dylan's point of view taken to the extreme, where you believe that most man-made technology is actually counter humanity and, you know, counter good life. So what people often forget is what it actually means to live in nature. It means fucking bears and bugs and diseases and, you know, avalanches. That's what it means. And obviously, yes, there's nice streams to sit under and contemplate, you know, but the technology, if you have too much of a subjective rejection of technology, then I think you're falling into a similar trap as the people who believe wholeheartedly in every technology is good and let's just push it forward and nothing should stop us from advancing. You know, I think the real danger is the homogenization that comes from Instagram and Twitter and these social networks that are essentially, you know, mind experiments on a mass scale where you feed people the same fodder, and there's no diversity, there's no immune system to your impressions. You know, everyone's eating the same thing, consuming the same thing through their phones, and when you lose biodiversity, then your health goes away. And I think the same goes for, you know, what you take in through your information center.
Yeah. I think it has the propensity is towards and the digestion of all these impressions is in the direction of a hypnosis. I don't necessarily think all impressions everywhere are all the same. That's basically what I'd say. I don't think that they're all of the same quality or all of the same origin.
That's fine. And I think that if you draw a line, which we all draw different kinds of lines, and you actually, it's like that Osho thing. If you actually just reject something as opposed to tolerate it, fine. But if you are allowing technology into your life and then you're resentfully tolerating it, then you're accomplishing nothing. If you actually just say, no, I'm cutting this out, then you've made a decision and you have freed yourself from something.
Well, also, the real freeing of things is to basically be able to coexist with them or to use them and not be emotionally involved with them. Because I'm sure everyone's been able to just say, I'm off social media. I did it for like a year once. I didn't go on any like didn't do any Instagram and all that. It's like it's easy to do that. What's not easy is to say, well, I kind of have to use this tool to promote a band and do
Well,
all these things, and then just not get sucked in.
Maybe a more clear example would be just children. Like, see the effects of this on children, and it's there's no doubt actually on the effects on their nervous system if they are exposed to too much screen technology. And we think we're so much different from them. Whereas if a child is like, and I know no one's arguing for this, but if a child is completely taken out of any natural stimulation, as in grass, trees, soil, whatever, animals, and they are in front of a screen or using technology on a daily basis, sure, they're going to get some benefit from it. They're going to learn at certain rates. They're going to get all sorts of other information and knowledge maybe they're going to acquire. But it's proven over and over and over again that stress hormones and their nervous system is under a lot of stress, and just taking them away from that and putting them into a natural environment for a short period of time, restabilizes that.
Mm-hmm.
There's two different discussions going on here. One is a practical discussion and a recognition of the kind of levers that pull the machinery of a human, and whether or not to live in compliance with those levers so that you don't create unnecessary obstacles in your life. And I think that's it, remaining to some degree in touch with what we call nature, even though nature is all encompassing, but colloquially nature is a way to pull the levers in your machine that need to be pulled and to lubricate the machine. And it's just it's a necessary practical part of life. But the kind of philosophical discussion as to what gets you in further touch or further away from supposed reality is a semantic discussion, because reality is always ever present, obviously.
Right.
Otherwise, it wouldn't be,
Yes, the qualitative difference between the impressions of nature versus Twitter or that are not necessarily differentiated along the lines of one is technology and one's got grass and leaves in it. That there has to be some other order of why certain vibrational impressions on you are more healthy. Let's call it like healthy in the biggest sense of that word.
The framing is always, what is the world doing to me? And it's never reversed. What am I vibrating into the world?
Well, no, that's a circle. I mean,
it's not, though, because I think you have to start with the premise that you can only change the cause, which is you. You are seeing the world. There is no world without you and without your observation of it. So you have to accept that there is no pendulum or back and forth. It's only you.
Yes, but required in that is then the idea of judgment. You have to take a knife and cut and decide to separate wheat from chaff to start then for yourself. Otherwise, that will happen naturally after the acceptance that it's all you. You will make correct decisions after that point. If you are viewing the world as having a negative impact on you, then you are in the wrong state to make discriminating decisions, in my opinion.
Yeah, you need help, though, in that sense.
Yeah.
You need to be given an idea like that. You can't, like, that idea didn't come just from the AI algorithms on Twitter.
Of course.
Like, an idea like that came from a much higher, much more creative mind or person.
But there's no reason to feel guilty about that. The only thing you can do is give that idea to someone else, and to accept. Like, it's if you get an idea that you perceive as coming from a special place, then you should just feel lucky and accept it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well. Mark Morrell says, I tried to keep my daughter off social media as long as I could. It opened a can of worms with bullying outside of school hours and less time in physical things, bike riding, walks, etc. I'm not sure I quite understand it. It opened up a can of worms of bullying.
I could play devil's advocate all day long with you. But bottom line is, I don't let my kids on the screens.
Yeah, because people see the effects of it, because like we think we're so much different from children that like we have this agency where we can choose between certain influences, and we can choose to use a technology and not become addicted to it. And yes, theoretically we do, but when it boils down to it, sometimes you need a little bit of help, and that sometimes that help comes in the form of outright, like, establishing rules for yourself. Like, I'm not going to go on my phone from 10 p.m. on, or whatever it is, because you can see the effects of it.
There's also
I
like
think
an
a big part of
energy
it is-
thing to it that you kind of, as an adult, start to realize things that take energy from you and things that invigorate you. And in a more simple, without getting too deeply profound into it, like, you kind of just know certain things sap you and other things bring you
but
life
there's that
and energy.
did you read that passage in Big Sur, in the Henry Miller passage?
Probably not yet.
He says that there are
I read
two,
the headline.
Yeah, there are two states, effectively: the rejection of life and the acceptance of life. And rejection of life invariably drains you, and acceptance invigorates you and brings you energy. And that
Right, but you see,
that's not to
Henry
do with
Miller is
making
one of those-
decisions about what to do with your life. It's what's called, it's meta. This is the actual metaverse. The actual metaverse is not accepting life. It's accepting the situation that contains life. It's accepting something above life.
yeah, it's also trying to do that which you have to do anyway. It's like not fighting things that are inevitable in a universal sense. Like, if you keep trying to falsely fight the flow of the ocean or the wave that's going to hit you, then it takes your energy.
I think there's a misperception maybe that Jesse has of me as well, is that, like, I'm not advocating for people, like the people that say they want to just go live in the forest. They can't do it, for one, and they would never be able, like, maybe there are some people to do it, and you should probably avoid those people. But for the most part, no one can actually do that. It's just impossible in the modern world. It's like saying, I just want to not even have a phone. It's like not going to happen. So, you're going to have to find a way to use a phone.
It's also a
Here's-
violent act, I think, to be too exclusive, like the whipping himself on the back sort of monk approach to everything is violent.
All I'm saying is that there's all sorts of food out there, and not all of it is the same. And it's very easy to see that with actual food. You go and you eat Cheetos all day, you'll see the results of that. It's not, you can't just say, I accept the universe of Cheetos and eat all the Cheetos.
I think a practical look at it is that this is a new era for humanity. Technology reaching this stage is a new era. We're encountering new problems. And if you take an analogy to agriculture, when agriculture came about and people stopped hunting and gathering and foraging and all that, especially when grains became sort of the only thing that people ate, human health took a major hit because we hadn't had the wisdom to learn about foods in the context of agriculture. And I think that's where we are now. We're transitioning into a new era where we're merging with technology. And if you have hope from humanity, it's that this is going to be a difficult transitionary period where we don't really know what humanity needs. How much is too much? What is the combination? How do you balance it with your physical existence and your natural existence?
Well, that's
And so in that period, it's probably good to have a cautionary attitude, which is, okay, well, we're not going to be able to escape this technology, but let's try and use it in a measured way and not be completely sucked into it. And I think a big part of that is age. Same reason you don't let kids do drugs is because they don't have the capacity yet to.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the money.
Say, it's the same thing here. You can't stop kids from interacting with technology completely, but I think basically monitoring it and allowing their brains to form outside of that context before we know exactly what it does is probably healthy.
Well, so you brought up the point, Dylan or Danny, about these ideas, these bigger ideas that we're talking about come from somewhere in the same way that a child is being shepherded through life because they don't have the wherewithal to understand everything that's coming at them. So that's an interesting question, is throughout these ages in humanity, who is shepherding thought so that it isn't just this mindless chasing of new technology?
There have
been people that have tried to guide humans towards something other than just like endlessly making
Yeah.
cooler rockets.
There was I watched this documentary about running. I can't remember what it's called, but it's about the kind of spiritual side of running. And it was the main theme of it was this race in New York, which is something like I'm gonna mess up how many miles it is. Thousands of miles.
Oh,
that
the Barkley Marathon?
No. It's over the course of a couple months, and people run literally like marathons a day or more, 50 miles a day at times, and they accumulate thousands of miles running this race. And then the other thing they went into was they went to Japan, and there's a sect of Zen Buddhists, and every year, or I can't remember, maybe 8 years or something like that, they choose someone to do this trek. And it's a similar kind of thing. It's kind of a minimum like 11 miles a day for a fucking long time going up this mountain. And if they don't complete, in the old days, if they didn't complete it, they had to commit suicide. And they've completed it every single time for the past 150 years. So the process of selecting the candidate for this trek is so rigorous and so kind of foolproof that they don't fail because they're just selecting the right person for it. And their entire view of themselves is that they are intermediaries between humanity and Buddha, and that their entire purpose as this, sect of Zen Buddhists is to transmit the messages or emanations from Buddha to Earth, and to basically reprogram Earth with something higher. Crazy sect of.
Well, yeah, that's, I guess what I'm interested in is there must be people, we never see them at the time, but looking back, there were always people that were doing that kind of thing, that are trying to transmit some kind of higher
We don't even know what
idea.
that kind of thing is, though.
No,
Yeah.
but we see the results
Yeah.
of it. You see the results of it. You see great books of wisdom or great schools that arrived, probably got corrupted, but they came from somewhere and they've been kept through humanity. And there must be people doing that now. It's just hard to see who's doing that.
Well,
Jared Kushner.
Well, you can see it. Maybe someone like Tesla and Edison. I feel like that's a little example of the that the different paths that humanity could have taken, or that those technologies could have taken, which was electricity became very centralized, and now like even in some states where if you want to have solar power. There were battles between some of the big solar grid companies and battery companies or something like that, where you basically had to only buy, even if you had solar, you had to buy your electricity from the solar or from the.
But you can blame
electrical
Tesla
company.
for that, because Tesla was promoting AC, and Edison was promoting DC and more localized stations, and Tesla was saying, no, you can just send the power a long distance, and that's why Edison went and electrocuted elephants to show people how dangerous AC was. No,
I thought it was
No.
It's not the opposite.
no. But there's no.
Well,
neither one is. Neither one. They are what they are. Neither one is good or bad. They're both like useful.
It's
Right.
maybe this is all like that Amish principle we've talked about a lot, which is
Something's amiss.
no, just that they're not as like anti-technology as everyone I think presumes they are. It's basically they're trying to answer what you started this whole conversation with: is does this thing improve the quality of my life in a real way? If so, let's use it. And that's the question you have to ask yourself. And that if you were honest about it, you'd agree that most things don't necessarily improve the quality of your life.
Well,
actually,
the crux of that. I mean, this is only one side of the Amish. I think is that they don't believe in saving time. It's not the
Right.
It's
Right.
and that's a weird idea, because if you accept that there's no such thing as saving time, that's a different way to view life.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is that before you even come to the question of does this improve my life, you have to answer or at least ask the question, what is my life?
right.
Like, what is my life, and what is it that I'm wishing for in my life? And if a certain technology improves one aspect of your life but not others, then it still has to be brought into the fold of questions, because like Danny's saying about the Amish not talking or not being too concerned with saving time, that time is used in your outer life for whatever it is. Like people have more time saving devices now than they've ever had before, but they spend that time now doing what for the most part. So now the question of what do you do with your time? What is the point of my life? Is the kind of first question I feel like before you say, does this improve my life or not?
Right, and that's what I meant by it. But you have prior to that state, even to arrive at the ideas that would have brought about this kind of philosophy and thought, there were certain technological advances that must have been necessary, as in like not dying from saber-toothed tiger attack. That's a clear one of like basic, perhaps agriculture or fire.
Let's keep it. At the TJ Maxx level that we live our lives, which is that Keurig and an espresso machine. An espresso machine is a good piece of technology. A Keurig is a piece of shit. Like, the espresso makes something that you can't make otherwise. I guess you could do a hand espresso, but you know it's a good thing. If you like coffee, the espresso is good. Have you ever had a Keurig?
Yeah.
Why do people drink that?
Well,
what are they doing? Like, they're saving themselves 30 seconds to have this piece of shit coffee.
I think there are so many examples of that, which is like a good cast iron pan,
right,
which has been around for hundreds or 1,000 years or whatever, you know, since iron was casted, and non-stick pans or whatever it is. Like the amount of non-stick or whatever ceramic pans you go through in your entire life, it doesn't cook things as well. You have to use only one. If you look at the whole picture of a cast iron pan versus these other things, you could say that the other ones do certain things better, but overall, it's actually just caused a whole bunch of more fucking pelicans to die or something. Like, you know, like it's got all the other.
I'm not going to defend Keurig because I've never had a good Keurig coffee, but you can't knock convenience for coffee, especially when, you know, you need that 30 seconds. Like sometimes I just can't even fucking wait 30 seconds for my coffee, you know, if the kids wake up early. So I will just drink old coffee that's been sitting on the stove.
That's better than Keurig.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
True.
Is that, like, I don't mind cold coffee that's been sitting around.
There's got to be a good Keurig pod. Like, all it's doing is pushing water through it. There must be one that's good.
No, there's something wrong with them.
Yeah, I agree that I've never had a good Keurig anywhere.
Yeah.
And I've had them at really fancy record label offices.
Yeah.
I like the point you made. We're deep into it anyway, but the point you made about time, that is the most important question. And what you're trying to save time for is a real important question. Because I do that all the time, particularly with a kid. When you're trying to like hurry things up with the kid to get done with this, you know, wash the dishes, do this, and then you find yourself at the end of that going, well, like, why was I rushing through this? Or even like giving my daughter a bath and like getting her ready for bed. You kind of rush through those things so that what? So that I can get back, check my Instagram or something. It's like, that's where you have to occasionally catch yourself and go, oh, that I'm not saving time by doing that. I'm killing time by doing that.
You just have to look at pictures of your daughters or your, you know, like, or in my case, my dog as a puppy, and then just realize, oh shit, dude, like this, it has completely disappeared. My life has disappeared so quickly that, and it's only like those little emotional kind of triggers that cause you to recognize how careless you are with time.
And so that would set the threshold then in terms of relating that to technology. Is what is something you could talk about in technology and or human progression that has been beneficial to time in the sense that we're talking about it, not just convenience. Like there was a point when humans, like if you look at a gorilla, for instance, because I had this question, this is a bit of an aside, but I saw this video of these people who were very pro-vegetarian, anti-the-meat movement saying, like, how are gorillas so big and they only eat plants? So I investigated a bit because it's like one of those questions I never thought about. Like, well, how is it that they've got big muscles? Like
bacteria.
Well, it's that, and they also eat 28 pounds of grass or of foliage a day. So there was a point where all your time and energy as a being, as early humans say, would have been spent just getting calories. So anything that improved that, say agriculture or cooking food or hunting, whatever it was that improved that, seemed to be a progression towards the ability for higher mind or higher pursuits to become possible. So that would be something I would say that you can't just say that we were all like living in the Garden of Eden, like as non-beings.
That's kind of my point, is that the impulse for a lot of technology, if not most of it, is convenience and time saving, or it's basically convenience. If you take away some of the really groundbreaking tech coming out now, which is much more interesting, like AI is quite interesting, things that allow humans to create like the personal computer, things like that. But for the most part, how many devices are you sold on YouTube that like is just a thing that is going to save you some time, or it's just a more convenient thing to use? And like that's the impulse for almost all creation or technology and creative output. And then you have to start wondering, like, why am I using this? Because the other day I found myself, I've been in a rush a lot lately to try to finish some of these projects. And so I've been eating really fast. Like everything has just been really fast. And I can feel this kind of rush. And then, so Amber made me like a sandwich as I was, because I hadn't eaten and I was driving. And I was eating in the car, and I had 45 minutes to eat my sandwich. There was no reason for me to eat my sandwich fast. But in the car I was driving, I was like, I was just like munching down on this sandwich, and I found myself going, why am I still rushing? I'm still trying to save time. And I feel like that's our baseline state, which is like we're trying to do everything more efficiently and more better to save time for nothing, like for nothing important.
But that's the power of music, and I think also certain games, which is that the ineffectiveness of rushing is so immediately revealed, and they kind of, if you're
rushing, actual rushing, like playing
but whatever,
music?
but just like trying to be somewhere else, trying to get through something, in music, if you're trying to get through it, or if you're trying to rush, it comes across in the result. Yeah. If same thing, my obsession is pool. Yeah. Like if you're trying to do more than one thing at a time, you're screwing
it's like
things
anything.
up. Yeah.
Trying to cook, all my meals suck if I'm trying to rush cooking. If I'm trying to build anything, like even the most simple little box, whatever for the garden, if I rush it, like I've got some place to do. One, it takes longer anyway, and it sucks.
I think we spent a lot of time on the mechanics of this state, and not necessarily. I think we're getting to the heart of it now, which is that you can do something fast without rushing. You can cook fast without rushing. It's a mental and emotional state that basically lowers the quality of life and lowers your quality of existence in whatever you're doing. And it's not even related to the speed or the tempo, because I've heard amazing songs that are played 100 clicks faster than the record, and if it's done right, it doesn't suffer. So I think my final word, because I have to leave in a minute, is that it's that state that you get into where you are doing something for some concept of achieving more time or achieving this or achieving that, that doesn't come from a true sense and a holistic sense. Because if you are saving time so that you can go be with your family and live, and do the things that you want to do, then I'd say it's valid to save that time. But if you're not actually asking that question and you're just doing it automatically, then it's probably not saving you anything.
Wait, Mark Morrill says never rush while building IKEA items. That is fucking true.
That's an aphorism.
So hold on to kind of back to what Jesse's saying there. I think part of the problem occurs, because something I've noticed in myself is that if you're trying to find more time, you're presuming it's like this unlimited resource, where if you kept going forward or you kept looking for it, you'd be able to find more of it and put it in your in your backpack or something, like a video game. But if you basically just accept that, at least as a human, you have a finite thing that is going away. Imagine if I gave you the best pizza in the world and there's only one piece of it, you would enjoy that more than if you knew there were 3 billion of those pizzas out there.
Read Megan Cooper's comment. I think she has a really good point. As someone whose dishwasher is broken, I can tell you that doing anything other than hand washing dishes is a great value. I happen to agree.
Yeah, see, I agree with that 90%.
But the fact is, you only valued it when it broke. Now you value it. So like the state of valuing something is linked to its deprivation. obviously.
What we need is a Mr. Miyagi, in our lives, telling us, Daniel-san, paint the wall like this, because you can be in the moment and really experience painting the wall and washing the dishes and stuff. But then at a certain point, like, just shut the fuck up, Mr. Miyagi. I want to do something else.
Yeah, more like wax on, whack off.
Well,
I was going to also say that dishwashers notoriously suck, and you have to hand wash anyway, and then you end up putting the dishwasher, and it still comes out with shit
No,
on it.
on mine I've got it's called Sanitize, and if I'm that's like they come out like sparkling.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
That's like a 4-hour cycle and very, very high heat. So if you put plastic and stuff in there, it's like
Yeah.
can melt some shit.
my dishwasher is great. Pretty happy with it. Best one I've had. It's a Samsung.
Yeah,
This
mine-
episode is brought to you by.
Mine's also a Samsung. I've got Samsung fridge, Samsung microwave.
See,
Samsung,
someone,
and
yeah,
they
I don't get
listens
any
to everything I
appliances
say.
unless they have an app and I can turn them off and on from it.
yeah, that's what I saw.
Dude, I poo-pooed that shit because I was like one of these like people who needs to be able to turn on their air fryer with a Wi-Fi connection is a fucking idiot and can't cook anyway. But mine's got Wi-Fi connection to my oven, so I can cut Dylan's beautiful carrots, put the oil and salt on them, put them in the oven, go for a walk around the neighborhood, and turn it on at the perfect time. And that's pretty cool.
I'll tell you where that would be really useful with cooking is that I do a lot of manual adjustment, taking the temperature down temporarily, up temporarily, taking the potatoes out of the oven, give them a 10-minute rest, put them back in. Like if you could sort of program that and get the perfect curve, like use a chart, and like put the temperature curve in, I bet you could do some shit.
I have an induction cooker that this is how elaborate I am, holds temperature, and I use it for whenever I make custards for ice cream, or like I made a tiramisu, and if you want to get the eggs, you want to keep them at 180 degrees, it does that. So it's like all that stuff that used to be hard, to make like a hollandaise used to need to have a bit of skill. It's like fucking easy as shit in this thing.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, Jesse, but you actually don't mean that, obviously, because if you could algorithmize, whatever the word is, the process of making your potatoes to get the perfect result each time that when you've hit the perfect thing, you wouldn't like it anymore. It's something about when you try to solidify and put into concrete anything in life, it loses its taste.
It's if I saw a robot playing note for note exactly in physical space on a real piano, a Keith Jarrett solo, I'd be like, I don't give a fuck. I don't want to hear this ever. I don't want to hear a robot play Keith Jarrett music, even if it nailed it.
What if it was behind a screen like they do for the orchestral auditions? That would be the only way.
Yeah. Okay. If I knew, that's a good point. Is that you need a blind test?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we've kind of exhausted it, but it basically comes down to what's the point of your existence and what's the value.
No, what's the point of your existence?
What's the point of my existence and what's the point of where I want to put my energy? Because I was thinking about this with the garden. There's this movement in farming now to these small no-till things, which is a lot more manual labor and a lot more manual efforts. And if all you were thinking about was efficiency, it's kind of stupid. Like no-till farming and all that stuff. If all you were thinking about was efficiency, it's very stupid. It's so much work. You have to do all sorts of things. But obviously, the interconnectedness of everything you're doing in the system is pretty important, and so efficiency is not the most important thing.
I hope that White Oak Pastures guy is as legit as he seems. I hope he doesn't turn out that it's kind of because I was having. He's a guy who runs these regenerative, livestock agriculture farms.
He's a farm in Georgia.
Yeah, and because I was talking to someone last night, and they were talking about crickets are most efficient way to eat protein to input to output. I was like, well, how are they fucking raised? They're raised in a factory in a building, and his whole point is this. If you myopically look at efficiency through a narrow window, yes, then soybeans and crickets are the most efficient thing you could fucking do. But if you step back a bit and you recognize that everything's interconnected,
Yeah.
then that's the most efficient thing you can
It's
do is
that-
maintain an ecosystem.
It's the story of it's a Sufi story about the blind man examining an elephant and describing it. You know, the
Yeah.
one guy feels the trunk and says it's like this kind of being. Another one feels the tail, says this kind of thing. You're seeing parts of it.
But it's also like, okay, I understand the world needs to be fed, and at that level, if you're dealing with like the third world, and how do we how do we literally just get people fed? Okay, legitimate pursuit.
Have Olive Garden take all the shit people throws away and figure a way to get
I mean,
it
this
there.
is a whole nother discussion which you could have with the technocrats and all that. They all think that technology and mass mega farms are going to be how they feed the world. And there's another school of thought, which is that it's actually the opposite, that small farms are going to be the way they feed the world.
Right.
But even forgetting that
It's probably
practical,
a combination. It's probably a combination.
Yeah,
There probably is no one solution, but it's also why my question is why so quickly are people going to like, oh, how do we get the most protein? How do we get the protein powder into the thing so that we can? It's just like, have you eaten normal food?
I think
that's what you should be pursuing. You should be
protein
pursuing
powder has gone to their heads or
Yeah.
something. They've turned into fucking idiots to think that that's an answer.
Well, what I was gonna say was that the efficiency, like if you're just looking at it from a practical perspective, there's clearly the discussion's not broad enough, or the perspective is not broad enough, because efficiency, the way the White Oak Pastures guys puts it, is that like it's very efficient for a short period of time, and then we are very efficiently moving towards the end of a cliff, which you can't stop, and you're going to fall off the cliff. You're going to run out of water supply. So you have to really have a broad perspective when they talk about efficiency for food. But then also, like, no one really mentions just the fact that there's joy in eating certain good food,
Right.
And there's joy in making the food or farming. Like it's been taken out of the equation, where it's farming or whatever it was. The menial tasks of life became something that you just want to get over with, so you can spend your time doing reading books or pursuing higher ideas, which is, I think.
Dude, these technocrats' moms were terrible cooks. That's what it was.
that is a great pursuit as well, but to a certain point, because then there is joy in planting a seed, or there is joy and you get something out of doing something not in the technological way. Like if I wanted to run my farm and I just like bought a $100,000 tractor robot and AI, it was like, cool, now I've got that. Now what do I do?
Right. So the more 76 there's already more food than more like enough food for the amount of people. This is an economics question. I don't know if that's true, but if it is true, then it makes you really question, like, why is there this pursuit towards caloric efficiency the only fucking god in these people's minds?
Yeah.
It
is like idiocracy. It's like
there's enough calories produced in America just in grain production for feed for the whole world, for like 9 billion people.
Well, yeah,
or something like that.
it's definitely economic and distribution problem. It's not a do we have enough food just in terms of like metric tons of protein.
What is that? That's a kind of downstream problem of the pursuit of efficiency as opposed to life. Like, what are you pursuing?
Yeah.
Are you pursuing life or efficiency?
This is an argument I've heard from this it actually is a two-side argument. There's the people that want everyone to live like they live in some big city in America, and then there's also the presumption that everything should just be like rural Africa, and like there's those people in rural Africa. There's a massive desire, from what I understand, and you can see it in evidence, to find like that's not great either.
Of course.
So
No.
there's a middle ground that's
Yeah.
happening. You've got these two opposing forces, and that, I guess, it just comes down to like this: you need some form of consciousness in yourself within a society to be kind of watching and saying, okay, we're kind of near the good point here.
Right.
You know,
But-
let's move on from that.
There's so many ambitions and they're so contradictory. It's like you need to give up certain ambitions as a person and as a group. And I think, like, you know, we're obsessed with food, but if you're not eating the correct things, you're not living. I don't think, you know. It's like, what are so you're going to get your fucking protein powders and your little Cliff Bars for the rest of your life, and then you're going to have a fulfilled life on your iPad. It's like you're just going to
Yeah.
It's too opposed to the mechanics of the machine. The machine, we have not evolved to that point. Maybe one day in a million years or 100,000 years, the human being will sustain itself on prepackaged bullshit, but we're still animals.
I know,
And
but you
there's
know what's
cer-
going to happen? Like, if you play that out in some kind of sci-fi movie, it's like we get everyone just eating like cricket protein, so there's 1,000% efficiency in terms of protein, so that we can put more time into the metaverse to build the perfect world in which we can buy fake filet mignon steaks and organic digital vegetables. Like, it's this endless cycle where they're going to get to the point again of
Right.
wanting to pursue.
But in the Matrix, when they're eating the gruel, and then there's the one guy who goes back into the Matrix so he can go eat the steak or whatever, they're not like saying eating the gruel is good. They're saying it's a necessary sacrifice so that they can finally kill the machine and get back to whatever Zion or whatever they're trying to get back to. They're not being like, this is the shit. But
That's a great comment from More 76. Calories is a great psyop created to give an impression that processed food has energy value.
Absolutely true. And people's presumption that they understand a calorie is just a presumption. Calories are established in bomb calorimeters. They are, if you burn something at a high enough temperature, you get a reliable understanding of how much combustible energy it has. Everything you burn this fucking wallet, it's got calories in it. If you eat it, what is it going to do for you? Nothing.
Right.
So it is a mechanistic view of life, and the mechanistic view infiltrates every single area of life to the point where people now obsess over a kind of placeholder for understanding, which is like the word calorie.
This is why you have to have churches and fucking science universities, because you can't have someone just looking at life as if you could, like you're saying, could burn a wallet and that has a calorie. Humans need calories. Humans can eat wallets. That's the conclusion that the pure scientists, and I'm not denigrating the idea of science, what that means.
No, not scientists, mechanists.
Mechanists.
Yeah.
You have to have someone else saying there's more to it than that, buddy. And this is what we should look at. Learn why that has a calorie, what that means, and then try to understand why we eat what we eat.
Yeah, I feel like the word purpose has got like a dirty connotation now.
Seems like every recipe I look up now is centered around some flavored protein powder.
I'd rather eat a well-spiced chickpea.
Yeah.
Pernilla, you need to use like DuckDuckGo or something like that. Or stop using Google.
Pernilla lives in England.
ChatGPT actually gives great recipes, and you don't have to read about what someone.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. I was saying I feel like purpose. I've had this discussion with a few people before, and like especially atheists, the word purpose is like, ooh, it makes them cringe because they don't think anything has a purpose. Like. I mean, clearly, it's so apparent that everything has a purpose, depending on what perspective or what level you are viewing it from. But that's what it comes down to. Is discovering some purpose, whether that will change over time, or it may not be your only purpose or your only your final purpose. But you have to find some purpose, because you're saying that humans need, like, this pursuit of efficiency is towards what? If you had some real purpose or aim, and efficiency allowed you to pursue that in a better way, then that's obviously, then use your Keurig,
but yeah, come on. Yes, I agree with your point, but to make a joke instead of a point, have you ever met one of those like food is fuel people that's not a fucking asshole?
No, I agree that basically,
if David Lynch,
huh? Who?
David Lynch.
No, but you haven't met him. That's what I'm saying. I know they exist. Like Tesla was apparently a very weird eater, very like weird in all the traditional ways you look at humans, and he radically changed humanity with his ideas. Fine, you go do your weird thing. Like, but these people that you meet in everyday life, they're like, food is just fuel. Fucking like, fuck off.
Yeah, it's missing a pretty basic purpose of life, which is to enjoy good food.
It's not even
IMO.
Yeah, well, it's
we talked about you should have started that sentence yesterday. We were talking, and Dylan actually began a story with, when I spent 2 weeks in Nicaragua.
It's when I was living in Nicaragua for 2 weeks.
I came to this realization that food's pretty important to my well-being. You know?
That is a great scene about Steve Martin, The Jerk, the movie The Jerk.
What is it saying? The talk about purpose reminds me of the movie The Jerk and Steve Martin's Special Purpose. I don't even remember that. I need to watch that movie.
It's fucking
again.
brilliant. It's it actually holds up.
All right,
yeah, purpose, man. That's you guys should listen to Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. That's a really interesting book.
Oh yeah, everyone has recommended that book. I've actually usually my joke would be that I don't know how to read, but I actually have been reading a lot recently. I've got books in my queue for the first time.
The reader on Audible is good on that one.
Okay, yeah. Nothing worse than a bad Audible reader.
No, yeah,
impossible. Let's just finish up here and play a clip. We've been doing all these. If you're following us on Instagram or Twitter or any of YouTube, we've been doing recordings of all of our songs and a couple covers. Not even recordings. We're just kind of messing around in the studio trying to find cool new ways to play our music and some covers. And we're on like our 13th or 14th of that. And we're just going to play one of those. And it's giving us a lot of really good ideas for recording new versions of our songs and then eventually for playing them live once we get back out there playing music. So here is, let me forget what song this was. What was this? Western Fog.
Some days the blanket doesn't lift.
You muted ours.
Like a western fog, it hangs around and doesn't give. It doesn't give a shit. In some ways, you gotta see it as a gift. Like it or not, it brings you to your knees when you never thought you'd quit. Oh, it comes and then it goes, like the cold before the dawn. But when it comes and doesn't go, what can you do to keep yourself warm? I wish I knew